Hello everyone, welcome back to the workshop. Today I want to tell you a story, so if you're sitting comfortably, I'll begin. Back in 1996, when I was a mere 36 years old, I had a very traumatic year for one reason and another. And at the beginning of 97, I thought I need a holiday, I need to have a break away from all of this palaver. So Bike Magazine were running tours in those days. They ran a series of tours from about April through to October, and they were running a tour in April, end of April sometime, that went to Spain on a ferry to Santander and then up through France and back to England. So I went on this tour and I had a fantastic time, met some lovely people, and I met a particularly nice chap called John. We ended up sharing a room together, and he was a thoroughly nice chap. We got on well. So the following year, Bike Magazine were doing another tour, but this time they were only doing Spain. So it was ferry to Santander, some time round Spain, and then back to Santander before a ferry back to England. So I arranged with John that we would go and do the tour together. You know, we'd join the group, because there'd be something like 70 or 80 people in this group of bikers, and we'd share a room together, and we'd enjoy the tour together as mates. So the plan was, at the time I was living and working in a place called Guernsey, which is a small island just off the coast of France in the Bay of St Malo. And there's a regular ferry service between Guernsey and other islands back to the UK. Now, the plan was I would get a ferry, get on my bike, get a ferry from Guernsey to a place called Poole in the south of England, and I would meet John there, and then we would go and sort of join the group for the trip. So everything's booked. I've got on the ferry, no problem. Went to Poole, met John at the sort of exit of Poole Harbour, and we rode about 100 and something odd miles from Poole down to Plymouth. And I booked a B&B for the two of us, and so we got to the B&B and we went out for dinner that night, and then we slept. And then the next morning, woke up, I had my shower, and then I was just sort of sitting on the bed, doing whatever I was doing, and John was in the shower, and suddenly I had this realisation that I didn't have my passport. Because in those days, bearing in mind this is 1998, in those days you didn't need a passport to travel, certainly didn't need a passport to travel between the UK and Guernsey, but obviously you did need a passport if you were going continental, so we were going to Spain. So this huge wave of oh bollocks swept over me, and when John came out of the bathroom I said, John, I haven't got my passport. So he said, well, what are you going to do? I said, well, I'm going to go and get it. So he said, really? I said, yeah, damn right. I'm not going to waste 12 days biking holiday just for the sake of no passport. So we got our stuff packed up, because I had panniers on the bike. Obviously, I was going touring, and as did John. And we rode down to Plymouth Harbour to meet the rest of the group. That was going to be the first time we met the rest of the group and the organisers. So I already knew the organisers from the previous year, of course. So went to talk to this lady, Caroline, I can't remember her other name, and explained to her the problem. And she said, okay, that's fine. This was on a Monday, okay? She said, there's a ferry every other day. So you could move your ferry ticket to the Wednesday and go and get your passport in between. So that was the plan. So I took some little bits and bobs out of my panniers and put them in a tank bag that I had, and gave the panniers to the group, to Caroline, and she was going to take them with her to Spain. So I then said goodbye to John, and obviously there were people on the tour that had been on the previous tour and had been on many bike tours. I mean, I'd done a couple subsequently to the one the previous year. So you sort of get to know people, and everyone was talking. You know, oh God, Steve's forgotten his passport, whatever. You know, he's going to go and get it. That's amazing. What I thought, right, I need to get to Guernsey, and I know that there is a flight from Exeter Airport, which is very near Plymouth, to Guernsey. So rode up to Exeter Airport, went in, and there was an airline called Flybe. They don't exist anymore. And went to the desk and said, I'd like a ticket to get to Guernsey and back in a day. And so the lady on the desk sort of typed in whatever, and she said, yeah, no problem at all. We've got a flight leaving at whatever time, and you can come back today. I said, oh, that's fantastic. How much is it? £186. And now, in 1998, that was a lot of money. I mean, it's quite a lot of money now. And I sort of went, whoa, that is like way more than I was expecting. And she said, well, if you can get to Southampton, then you can do a return tomorrow for £59. I said, that's perfect. That's perfect. Book me on that, and I'll make sure I get to Southampton, which is very near Poole. So, booked the ticket, and then rode back, all the way back, 100 and whatever miles, to Southampton. Went to the airport, and because I thought I need somewhere to stay overnight. So what I'll do is I'll go to the airport and go to the tourist information desk, and they'll be able to sort out some accommodation for me. Because bearing in mind, this is before smartphones. This is before. I mean, if the internet existed, it was in its early days. Still wearing nappies. So went to the desk, said, can you help me? I need a B&B. And so the lady on the desk was extremely helpful, and she said, yes, there's one about 8 miles from here, it's X amount of money. So she phoned them up, made a booking for me, and I then trundled off down to this B&B. I spent the afternoon reading my book, or whatever I was reading at the time, and went out for dinner in the evening. And the next morning I needed to get to Southampton Airport. So I left my tank bag at the B&B because I didn't need to take that to Guernsey. I only needed to take myself. So rode to the airport, all in my leathers, with my helmet. I mean, I was biking, So got on the plane, flew to Guernsey. And on the flight, I was sitting next to this chap, and I was telling him, we got chatting as you do, and I was telling him why I was dressed as a biker and why I was going to Guernsey. And he said, well, I'm renting a vehicle, a car, when we get to Guernsey, so if you like, I could give you a lift back to your house, which was in the sort of main town. So that's what he did, very kindly. I waited around for him at the airport for a few minutes, got in the car, he took me to my house. I then went in my house, got my passport, and then found a taxi and went back to the airport. Then I flew back to Southampton. I then picked up my bike and rode down to the B&B to collect my tank bag, and then I rode back to the original B&B in Plymouth to overnight, bearing in mind this is Tuesday night now, in order to get the ferry on the Wednesday. So all of that happened, and on the Wednesday morning I rode down to the ferry terminal, checked in, everything was absolutely fine. I had my passport, everything. And there were some other bikers there, obviously, it was sort of the end of April. There was plenty of bikers going, motorcycling in Spain. And I got chatting to this group. There was about 6 of them, I think, 5 or 6 of them. An absolutely fabulous bunch of bikers, as is often the case. And we got chatting, and we were having a right old laugh. And they said, you should come with us. We're going to Switzerland and Austria. Come with us, join our tour. And I said, listen, all my clothes are with this other group who are now in Spain, I have no pants. So what am I going to do, Anyway, so we spent the evening in the bar on the boat, and the next morning we didn't get into Santander until around midday. And so I spent the morning poring over these Michelin road maps that I had with me, because you've got to remember, no smartphones, no sat nav, no GPS, none of that. Okay, it's all paper and writing things down with a pen. I know. I mean, how extreme is that? So I literally spent about 2 hours trying to work out the best route, because there were very few motorways. Now, I needed to get to a place called Bayona in order to meet the group. Now, Bayona is a few miles north on the coast of Portugal, Spain, but it's about a few miles north of the Portuguese-Spanish border, okay, on the coast, okay, and it's more than 400 miles. So I worked out a route, and because I had my tank bag, I wrote it all down on a piece of paper in the way I used to do touring, insofar as I'd simply write place names down on a piece of paper, and I'd just follow the next one, the next one, the next one, and that's what I wrote down. So arrived in Santander, it was absolutely baking hot. I mean, it was well into the 90s. It was massively hot, because even in those days it used to get hot. I mean, who'd have thought? Because everyone thinks it only gets hot like now. So I set off at 12:30, and my plan was I had to be at the Parador in Bayona, which is where I was going to meet the rest of the group, before it got dark, because I didn't want to be wandering around Spain in the dark, not being able to find where I'm going. So I set off, and it's boiling hot. I'm sweating like a whatever, and I'm trundling along, and every sort of 100 miles or so, or 80 to 100 miles, I'd be stopping to fill up with fuel, go to the loo if I needed to. I didn't really eat anything because I'd had something on the boat, and critically clean my visor of flies. And I would pull into a petrol station, and invariably they're all serviced. So I said to whoever, "Can you please fill it up? I'm going to the toilet." I would then go off to the toilet, clean my visor, have a wee, and then go back to the bike. And on one particular stop, I pulled in, fill it up, off I went to the loo, clean visor, paid the guy, got back on the bike, and I'm just pulling away from this fuel station, and there's this line of hills in the sort of distance, maybe 5 or 6 miles away, and I could see what looked remarkably like a light aircraft flying over this ridge and coming down towards me. And I'm watching this thing, and I'm probably in third or fourth at the time gear, and I'm watching this thing, and it's coming closer and closer to me, and I'm thinking, oh, what the is happening? And then there was this great splat on my visor, and it wasn't a light aircraft at all. It was a massive bug that basically coated my visor in yellow-green custody stuff. So I turned round, went back to the garage, cleaned my visor again. The guy at the petrol station is thinking, what's he doing here again? And then I set off again. So everything's going fine, the routine's going well, and eventually I pull in to Bayona, and it is just getting dark. It was probably around 8:15, 8:30ish when I sort of started going along the seafront at Bayona, and I saw the signs for the Parador, went up to the Parador, and I was sharing a room with John, and John had left a couple of notes at reception for me, because of course he was anticipating I would be there, but he didn't know what time I was going to get there. I went upstairs to the room, got changed, had a very quick shower, and then walked where the group, because there was, like I say, there was about 80 of them or so. The group were having their evening meal in a separate sort of well, it was like a castle a great room, you know, because the Parador at Bayona is a castle. I'm not sure if it's a 4 or a 5 star, but it's an old castle converted into a Parador, which is beautiful. So I went and I walked into this great room, and there's all these trestled, you know, like bench tables, you know, and with all these people in. And I just sort of poked my head in the door just to make sure I was in the right place and not bursting into a wedding party. And sort of somebody saw me and said, "Oh my God, Steve's here!" Steve, and there was this ripple effect over the room that I was there, and somebody stood up and started clapping. And of course they all start, and so I entered this room to this standing ovation. Now, to be fair, I have experienced ovations previously during my work in the theatre, but never a standing ovation, and never for simply turning up. So I got to the front, and someone had saved a seat for me, and I sat down, and everyone wanted to know what had been happening and what have you. And that's when the holiday really started. It didn't altogether go well after that, but that is another story. So that was my story of going to Spain without a passport and having to go and get it. I hope you've found this mildly amusing, interesting. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy listening to me talk, and I'll be along with another story very soon. Thanks very much.